Am I the a-hole for calling out a friend's divorce because she wouldn't leave my husband alone? My husband works with a girl named Lucy, who also happens to be part of our social circle. I wouldn't say she's close to us, but she's a close friend of a friend, so we'll see her once in a while when there are group outings. She also works with my husband, John, and I guess because we also see her outside of work, she thinks she's super close to my husband. I'm not a super jealous type, but I drew a line when my husband himself voiced discomfort at Lucy's behavior. She likes to make jokes about being his work wife, try and push me out of conversations with my husband, like, you weren't at the office, so you wouldn't understand, and has tried to initiate one-on-one hangouts with my husband. John has turned her down, and has also explicitly told her that she was making him feel uncomfortable and to stop. She's just laughed and brushed it off, and still continues. He hasn't brought it up to work yet because she's a single mom and he didn't want to get her in trouble. Her advances have mostly been just annoying, but it recently escalated, which brings us to the issue. At a barbecue, my husband was sitting around a fire pit with his friends. I got up to get food, and I came back right as Lucy came and sat down on my husband's lap while joking, "Your work wife can entertain you while your normal wife is busy." This was the first time she made a physical advance, and my husband immediately jumped up and pushed her off. She laughed and told him to stop being so sensitive, and I could tell it embarrassed my husband. It was at this point that I told her, maybe if you had focused more on being a real wife instead of a work wife, you wouldn't be divorced. Lucy immediately left the party after that, and I found out from our friend that she cried in her car. She since skipped and avoided all events where I'm there with my husband, which has caused a strain with our mutual friend. Most of our other friends were on my side, but some said I was too harsh and that Lucy was just kidding around. Now for the top comments. Not a-hole. Lucy is trying to steal your husband. Thankfully, he is a good guy and isn't having it. Time for him to go to HR. There's a non-zero chance that she'll go first and report him for harassment. Good luck. He needs to file that yesterday. He should expect fallout for not addressing this more seriously. Work friends turn on each other constantly. Not a-hole. Lucy crossed a big line and needed to be put in her place publicly. It's probably the only way you and your husband could get her to stop. Bold and brazen, while trying to cloak it as a joke. Wow. Also, all of the kinder and subtler ways were tried and dismissed. Was it harsh? Maybe. Necessary? Definitely. Not a-hole. Not a-hole. Lucy is lucky that she just felt your wrath, rather than your husband going to HR like he should. I understand completely why your husband doesn't want to. There are probably two reasons. One, he really doesn't want her to get in trouble. And two, it's embarrassing for a man to say they are being harassed. You should probably tell your husband that he needs to go to HR about it. She shouldn't lose her job over one instance, and she'll hopefully learn a very valuable lesson. Harassment at the workplace isn't a game. He needs to go to HR and get the facts on record before she goes and tries to twist his story. Unfortunately, he might need to start a resume as well, because HR can see it as who is the bigger liability. Hopefully his job performance is better than a single mom trying to steal someone else's husband and keeping him as in the company's better interest. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting people at our pool? My fiancé and I own a house with a pool in the backyard. His brother Jay had asked the day before if him and his family, wife plus 3 kids, could come over on Sunday to swim after one of the kids' sport games, which was at a park close by to us. Now, fiancé and I own a business together that requires working from home on Sundays. Everyone that we know is aware of this, including his brother. I voiced my opinion that I felt it was weird for people to be at our place while we were working in the basement. But fiancé assured me that it would just be chill. He said it's normal for a family to use people's pool even if they weren't home. So, we let them come thinking that they would swim for maybe an hour then leave. But it wasn't just them. Fiancé's parents also came. We figured they would. But the kicker is that Jay also invited 2 of his friends plus their partners and their kids as well. We do know these people, but both fiancé and I were not aware of this beforehand. So now it's a full-on party in our backyard while we are working in the basement. I became very annoyed that they did not only invite themselves, but some of their friends as well. It made me feel guilty that I couldn't be in my own backyard to host people because I was working. It also felt like they were just using the house and didn't really care about seeing us, the homeowners. Not to mention, the house was a complete mess. We had a busy Friday and Saturday, and I didn't bother cleaning much before because I figured it would just be Jay's family. Everyone was here from 1 p.m. till 7 p.m. We finished work around 3 p.m., at which time, fiancé put on his swim trunks to join them outside. I got in a pretty bitter mood from it all and stayed inside. I didn't even say hello to anyone because I figured they weren't even here to see me, just my pool. I did some laundry and some cleaning up, and I did end up seeing a few people who were coming inside to use the washrooms. I said hi and tried to make some small talk, but I really wasn't happy. Fiancé came in and said that I was creating an awkward / unwelcoming atmosphere by not being outside. I told him I never planned to have a party today, so I was just carrying on doing what I originally had planned, which was laundry and cleaning. Fiancé keeps saying that I was rude for not joining them outside after work. He also says things like, the pool is meant to be used, and that it's family time. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add, answering those who have asked, we bought this house together completely 50-50. Fiancé keeps saying that I was rude for not joining them outside after work. Not the a-hole. You're not obliged to host a party you didn't want with people you didn't invite. Agreed. She also has a fiancé problem. Just sounds like the fiancé is more laid back about friends and family using the pool than Opie is. Opie was perfectly capable of asking them to leave after an hour or so and could easily have said they needed a peace and quiet to work. Waiting until it's gone on a while then sulking / cold shouldering everyone is childish. Whether the family brought a couple extra people unannounced or not. Not that that isn't a bit rude itself. The fiancé is more laid back about friends and family using the pool than Opie. Of course he is. It's his side of the family. It's very usual to have an agreement that each spouse deals with their own side of the family to prevent some "how dare you say that" comments. Wanna bet that neither the fiancé nor his brother and his extended uninvited guests would be amenable to Opie going out there and say, "People, that's enough. I have work to do." This is a fiancé problem, not a brother-in-law problem. Not the a-hole. This is the most concise statement that sums up the real issue. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a problem, just a pretty severe misalignment when it comes to the pool / having guests over / boundaries. Sounds like Opie's fiancé likes having guests over and doesn't mind people using their pool whenever. And it is his pool too. He does get a say in who uses it and when. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not contributing to my boyfriend's home renovations? My boyfriend and I, both in our 30s, have been together for almost 2 years. Each make decent money, though he makes almost twice my income, and plan to marry and have kids in a year. Less than a year into dating, I agreed to move into his house, which he owned for several years at that point. Before officially moving in, all he requested to me was to pay 40% of the monthly mortgage and utilities payment and to take turns buying groceries. I gladly agreed and have consistently done that. I've also been paying for everyday necessities, such as toilet paper, soap, paper towels, etc. And we use my car 90% of the time because he's pointed out that my car is more gas efficient. I always pay for gas too. I estimate these extra monthly costs to be around $400 to $500 and never complain. Since the beginning of our relationship, he shared his home renovation plan starting with the bathrooms, which he estimates to cost at least $10,000. I like the idea because the improvements would be nice to have. Floor-to-ceiling marble, glass shower doors, and new windows to add natural light. There are currently no issues with the bathrooms, but he insists we should get it done before we have kids, and would like me to contribute. I've always been upfront about my hesitation to contribute large amounts to a home I don't own because we aren't married yet, and I'm not on the deed. I also don't want to be like his ex who contributed to similar expenses, and obviously that didn't work out. I told him it would give me comfort in knowing I contribute large amounts to something I also own, and also shared my insecurity about ending up like his ex, which he thinks is ridiculous because nothing's guaranteed anyway. We could marry and divorce. He recently had other improvements made to the house which costed about $10,000. I didn't help pay or request these things, but I have made previous comments about how these upgrades would be nice to have eventually. Lately, it seems my boyfriend has been building resentment towards me for not contributing more because he's made comments that my monthly mortgage contribution doesn't help a lot and that it feels like he will always be alone in this. I've told him I have no issues with contributing more once I'm on the deed. Edit. I wanted to provide a little clarification/extra info in response to some of the comments. The 40% I pay is towards the mortgage and utility bills, and by his calculations, the total for that is $800. That, plus the extra $400 to $500 I spend, brings my monthly contribution to about $1,200 to $1,300. According to a quick Google search, the average cost of a one-bedroom apartment in my city is about $1,600. We're both aware that I pay less than the average, and I've expressed my gratitude for not having to pay that much anymore. I rented a one-bedroom apartment before moving in and have done this for years. Also aware that utilities like electricity and gas can fluctuate, so I'm also grateful to pay a fixed amount towards that every month. Although we mostly use my car and I always pay for gas and the monthly city parking, he is very experienced and handy with cars, and has done my oil changes, so I have not had to bring my car in for maintenance at a shop. Not a-hole. Don't pay for work on a house you have no legal claim to. Quite honestly, you need to take a step back from paying the amount you do, in my opinion. I could see covering/splitting utilities and groceries, but why are you paying any amount of money to a mortgage you're not on? And in addition to that, you're the one putting all those miles on your car. And if he doesn't contribute to gas, I'm assuming he doesn't contribute to maintenance either. And you're not even the first partner he's pulled this crap with? I don't know, bestie. The red flags are starting to pile up. She's paying it for rent. Why should she live there rent-free? But the renovations? Yeah, she definitely shouldn't pay for those. Not a-hole. He basically made a rental agreement with you, but expects you to contribute like you're an owner. If he feels like he'll always be alone in this, then he should formalize your partnership. This is it. Does that mean he never plans to marry? Never plans to co-own assets, including a house? Because that's a flag of a certain color flapping in the breeze there. Not a-hole. Don't contribute to something you don't own without more agreement. If he raises the rent, discuss the gas and other costs. As far as the house goes, you're a tenant. As partners, though, it's time for a serious discussion about plans and timelines and feelings, especially if you're thinking about kids in a year or so. I would only contribute to the renovations if there was a signed notarized note detailing the monies given with a stipulation that the funds would be returned in the event the relationship doesn't work out. He could just be a man trying to build a home and life for you both, but he makes twice your income, expects 40% of mortgage for rent, and uses your car 90% of the time. That's an uneven split of costs. This smells like the guy's dangling the carrots of marriage and family to primp his home that you have no ownership claim to. Not the a-hole. You are right to think twice. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife's friend she was wrong to leave her alone? Yesterday, I had plans to take my son to a water park. I asked my friend's wife, who is good friends with my wife, to stay with her for the day. She can't really be alone right now because of her health. All of these plans were made in advance. When I got home, my wife was alone with our baby, and her friend was not there. I contacted a friend who said that my wife cussed her out and told her to get out of her home and her life. I understand that's a lot to put up with, but she didn't even call to tell me she was leaving her alone. She told me she didn't call me because my wife is a grown woman and everyone needs to stop coddling her. I said that wasn't her decision, and I felt betrayed by what she did. She called me a disaster whose life is falling apart, and that instead of passing judgment on her, I should shut up and listen for once. I didn't mean to offend her. I was just shocked by what she did. But her extreme response makes me think I did something wrong. Was I an a-hole for judging her actions? You're the a-hole. If your wife can't be left alone, you need to hire a caretaker, not pawn her health off on friends. Her friend has no obligation to be mistreated by your wife, especially when you're off having a fun day at the water park. You're stressed, and you and your wife are taking it out on someone who tried to do you guys a favor. This PPD is no joke. You put yourself first and took it out on her friend. You need to prioritize her. OMG, read his prior post. He got his ex knocked up. Don't let him say it's PPD. It's husband making bad decisions depression. read the whole post history. They're separated because she keeps talking to her racist father, keeps inviting him to the dinner Opie's cooking, and begging Opie to stay. Yes, Opie messed up, but let's not act like this dumpster fire of a marriage is just on him. You left her while she's suffering. So, I've stayed with her for months after my initial request for a divorce because she said she needed me. I almost lost my job because of her. I almost lost my son. She has alienated herself from almost all of our friends and is trying to prevent me from maintaining contact with them. Where is the line? When does it stop? I love the person she used to be, that I thought she was. But when does it end? Is this my life now? Have you taken her to see a doctor to put her on meds? Please take the baby from her and hire a caretaker for her until she's better. Continue on with your divorce, but know you have to pay child support. Right now, sir, for the friend incident, you're the a-hole. You need to listen to the friend. Good luck, dude. She wouldn't return after the first appointment, nor will she take the medication that was prescribed. I cannot afford to hire a caretaker for her, especially since she almost got me fired by calling my boss and telling him if she died, it would be his fault when I had to go into the office for a mandatory 1-hour meeting. If something like that is truly happening, then you need to call the police or a mental health facility to get your wife the help she desperately needs. At this point, she is a danger to herself and to your baby. Money be damned, would you rather be in debt from getting your wife help? Or in debt from 1 or possibly 2 funerals because you didn't take this seriously? Because that is the route you are risking right now. And putting that on your friend is absolutely disgusting and out-of-line behavior. That is an out-of-line request. That is not your friend's job to deal with that, and you should never have put that on them.